A calculation made Gu Nian lose his innocence and forced him to leave home. 4 years later, she returned with her triplets in shock and saved a mysterious man. At first, facing the female doctor who repeatedly exposed him, the mysterious man gritted his teeth. "Recognize your identity and don't have any ulterior motives towards me. I have no chance of falling in love with a single mother." Gu Nian remained calm and said, "Stop being narcissistic. I'm not interested in you." Later, Gu Nian became popular in the medical and upper-class circles. Faced with her countless pursuers, a certain big shot pulled out 3 miniature versions of herself with a dark face. "Nian Nian is my child's his mother. I'll see who dares to rob me." Triplets apart. Mommy said, "She has beauty, money, and us. Life has been perfect, and she has no ulterior motives for you." A certain big shot quickly coaxed, "Little ancestors, your mommy is pregnant with a second child. Let her give me a title quickly." Chapter 1. Saving a Mysterious Man. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Gu Nian, I have never touched you before. The child in your belly is not mine. We are divorced. You should immediately take the wild seed in your belly and get out of my house. The newlywed husband Lu Chunfei threw her belongings all over the ground, looking disgusted. Thinking about the whole person is bewildering. "Aiken, are you joking with me? We were clearly together at the hotel on our wedding night. The man who was with you that night was not me, I have always been with Shintong." What? On his wedding night, Lu Chunfei surprisingly left her behind and was with her stepsister Gu Shintong. Gu Nian's face turned pale and he said, "Lu Chunfei, did you cheat?" Lu Chunfei looked at her up and down, with a look of disgust on his face. "Gu Nian, take a look at your dignity and think you can still match me. I am now a noble young master from Yuncheng, and only a charming person like Shintong can match me." Gu Nian's mind was throbbing with pain, feeling that the man in front of him was so unfamiliar. When Lu Chunfei was born, he was held by a nurse and was only found by his current biological parents 3 months ago. The Lu family is a top-tier wealthy family in Yuncheng. Although Lu Chunfei's parents' family was just a side branch of the Lu family, it did not prevent him from jumping from a precarious and unknown commoner to a wealthy young master. And she, unlike her stepsister Gu Shintong who dresses up, has a mother who has been in prison and is not favored by her father at home. So Lu Chunfei doesn't think she's good enough for him now. When he pursued her before, he said he liked her simplicity. After a person's identity and status change, their heart will also deteriorate. Gu Nian's eyes were filled with tears. "Lu Chunfei, you bastard. You want a divorce. Alright, you wait." 4 years later. In a 2-story small building on the outskirts of Yuncheng. Gu Nian collected all the herbs that were sun-dried in the backyard and knocked on his waist. "Mommy, come with me quickly." Brother picked up a big animal to provoke. A cute little girl, with 2 braids tied in her horns, walked over with short legs and pulled Gu Nian out. Xiao, where did you and your brothers go to pick up animals again?" Gu Nian held the soft little hand of the little milk bag, with a smile on her eyebrows and eyes. She was pregnant with triplets back then. This is Gu Xiao, the youngest daughter of one of her triplets. 4 years ago, after falling out with Lu Chunfei, she moved out of the Lu family. Her medical advisor had helped her apply for an exchange program in N country a long time ago, so she chose to go abroad for further studies. She didn't want the child in her belly. But the doctor said that her uterine wall is naturally thinner than others, and if it were to be removed, perhaps she would not be able to conceive again. So she chose to be born. Setting aside the hardships of pregnancy, she has been fortunate to have 3 adorable children accompanying her for the past 4 years. She felt unprecedented happiness and satisfaction. Mommy, look quickly." Gu Xiao led his concern to a wasteland. There, 2 identical little guys were staring at the ground. "Da Bao, Er Bao, what small animal have you discovered this time? Gu Nian thought that the little ones had discovered some injured animal as usual. However, as I walked over, I found a man lying on the ground covered in blood. Mommy, he's injured. Dabao's facial features are delicate, and his speech is a bit cool. The little person exudes an innate nobility and a lack of age-appropriate composure all over her body. Mommy, he's still breathing. Let's save him quickly. After saving him, we can earn money again. Erbao has the same face as Dabao, but he is quite happy. Gu Nian's face straightened slightly, and he crouched down to carefully examine it. The man is still alive, but his breath is weak. If left untreated, one may die. Glancing at the cliff not far away, her eyebrows furrowed slightly. I think this man should have fallen from above. What kind of person is it? Gu Nian touched his pocket but couldn't find anything to prove his identity. Adhering to the principle of caring for the doctor's parents, she exerted all her strength to suckle and drag the person back, placing them in a room on the first floor. Mommy, I'll go help you get the tools. Mommy, I'll go help you get water. Mom, I'll just take a look next to it. Listening to the sound of the three little ones, my heart feels warm with concern. This is a house left for her grandmother before her death. After returning to China not long ago, their mother and son lived here. This time returning to China, firstly, the children have reached the age of school, and secondly, she has to investigate one thing. Quickly, Dabao brought her a medicine box. Gu Nian opened it and took out a cloth bag from inside. There is a row of silver needles inside, shining with silver light under the light. Mommy, are you going to start getting injections again? Xiao Xiao huddled beside Dabao, wanting to see but not daring to. Dabao hugged her little shoulder and looked like an older brother. Yes, babies, you guys go out first. Mommy is going to save someone. Okay, the three little ones all responded in unison. After they left, Gu Nian took off the man's clothes to only a small inside, and then punctured several important parts of his body. The man has a burly figure and 8-pack abs, showcasing his charm. His gaze shifted upwards and landed on his right shoulder. There is a shallow tooth mark. With a pause in my breath, the night I spent in the hotel 4 years ago suddenly flashed through my mind. The man's shallow breath wrapped around her, and the pain hit. She bit into his shoulder as his face changed slightly. He quickly brought a wet towel to wipe his face, hoping to see what he really looked like. A slightly damp towel gradually wiped away the stains on the man's face. Reveal his original face. Wide forehead, high nose bridge, and slim lips. His facial features are sharp and angular. Even if his face is injured, it does not hinder his original beauty. What a handsome man. Not only handsome, but also somewhat familiar. Looking at him with a fixed gaze, the images of 2 sons flashed through my mind. Why do the sons look 6 or 7 times similar to him? Can we say that he is the man from 4 years ago? After helping the man finish acupuncture and moxibustion, he drew a little blood from him for testing. San Xiao waited for Gu Nian to walk away before sneaking into the room. Wow, what a handsome corn. Gu Xiaoxiao looked at the sleeping man, his big black grape-like eyes filled with pink bubbles. Sister, don't be a flower addict. Bao sneered, then looked at the man and then at Dabao. Hey, brother, do you think he looks like us or not? Dabao's big obsidian-like eyes squinted and remained silent. It does look like it. Aha, he looks like us. Can he be our dad? Gu Xiaoxiao's face was excited. Sister, there are many similar people in the world. You see, we are also very similar to that bad man. Dabao's tender voice exudes a hint of calmness. Yeah, that bad man who abandoned his mom is not our dad. Gu Xiao flattened her small mouth and looked at the man on the bed with a milky voice, saying, Brother, I really want to know who our dad is. He also wants to know. Dabao's beautiful big eyes moved and he walked towards the laboratory that had been temporarily built by Gu Nian. Since he became sensible, he had pieced together his background through the conversation between his mother and godmother. Their biological father is unknown. Can the man who looked so similar to them just now be their father? In the laboratory, Gu Nian is waiting for the test results. Half an hour later, item-by-item data came out. Men have good physical fitness and no hidden illnesses. He just fell off the cliff and broke both legs. To recover, further diagnosis and treatment are needed. With a clear understanding in mind, looking at the man's blood type list. Chapter 2. Men 4 years ago. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The blood type of a man is type B. Gu Nian Xiu raised her eyebrows slightly, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Neither she nor the children have type B blood in their blood types. So, this man just looks like her children. Not related by blood to the children. Thinking of this, Gu Nian breathed a sigh of relief. The child is hers, no one can take it away. If the man who was just saved is the same man from 4 years ago, she will definitely give him a shot that will keep him awake. Mommy, is that uncle okay? Dabao walked in with short legs. Gu Nian stood up and washed his hands. Fortunately, he was lucky enough not to die from a fall. But he broke his leg and needs treatment for his leg disease when he wakes up. Dabao let out a sound and his beautiful big eyes glanced straight at the table. When he saw the blood type chart, his eyes lit up. Since childhood, he has read extensively and knows how to determine the blood relationship between family members. Unable to wait to pick up the list and take a glance, the light in his eyes dimmed slightly. Hope is in vain. That uncle just looks similar to them. Dabao, Mommy will go and decoct medicine for him. Gu Nian found a few herbs and went to the kitchen to decoct them. After cooking, she went to the room, helped the man up, and started feeding him medicine. The sleeping man tasted the bitterness and pursed his thin lips tightly. I've been feeding it a few times, but I can't get it in. She pinched his nose and forced him to open his mouth. After she finally poured the medicine in, he actually vomited it out. Gu Nian was speechless. You look tall and imposing, why are you so delicate? Are you a man? If you don't drink anymore, I'll have to feed you with my mouth. Don't say I belittle you then. The sleeping man's thin lips tightened again. Although still asleep, there was a hint of coldness emanating from his body, as if he was very angry. This person has a quite big temper. Gu Nian vomited his turbid breath and pinched his nose again. Open your mouth and spit it out again, I really belittle you. Probably intimidated by her, the man furrowed his brows but never vomited again. After finishing a bowl of medicine, Gu Nian was sweating profusely. What kind of person is harder to serve than her 3 treasures? The next afternoon. Dabao, Mommy, go out and buy something. Take care of your younger siblings at home. Looking at his eldest son's delicate little face, his eyebrows and eyes were filled with a proud soft light. Among the 3 children, the eldest son is the most sensible and intelligent. Not only does he enjoy learning, but he is also proficient in computers. I really don't know who his intelligence is inherited from. Is it her, or the biological father who hasn't met before? Got it. Mommy, be careful on the road and bring your wolf defense weapon. Always be vigilant when approaching men and don't make any advances. Gu Nian. Baby, please remove the last half of the sentence. She's not the youngest daughter, is she not at all promiscuous? Gu Nian drove his newly purchased car to Huai Shopping Mall in Yuncheng. She helped her 3 children buy a few new clothes, and then thought about it and went to the men's clothing brand on the 4th floor. Do a good deed every day and achieve 3,000 accomplishments. That man's clothes are all torn, she's good enough to do it to the end. Buy him 2 new sets of clothes. Have you seen the news? The newly appointed president of our group, Lu Hanchen, has had a car accident. Of course I saw such a big news, the car he was driving fell off a cliff and exploded. Yeah, but there's no one in the car, and I don't know if Lu Hanchen is alive or dead. How could there be a chance of survival after falling off such a high cliff? Huai Shopping Mall is affiliated with the Lu Group. 3 salespeople were chatting gossip, and after listening attentively, their hands picked out clothes. I had a car accident and fell off a cliff. How does it sound similar to the man she rescued? Isn't the person lying in her house now Lu Hanchen? Absent-mindedly, he picked out 2 sets of men's clothes and prepared to go back and have his eldest son use his computer skills to check and see what Lu Hanchen really looks like. Just walked out of the counter and accidentally bumped into someone. Sorry, Gu Nian quickly apologized. The other person stared at her for a few seconds before probing, concerned. Gu Nian raised his eyes and his face turned cold when he saw the newcomer. Surprisingly, it's her stepsister Gu Xintong. It's really you, Gu Nian, you finally appeared. Gu Xintong is wearing a red dress, exuding a bold demeanor. She scrutinized her thoughts up and down, amazed and jealous. In her impression, as a half-sister, she always wore a pair of black-framed glasses and had thick bangs. Dress up very rustic. But now she has removed her glasses and her bangs are gone, revealing a smooth forehead. A small face that is pure and elegant, much more beautiful than before. Where did she drag on without divorce for the past 4 years? Did you go for plastic surgery? Sister, you really know how to hide. I thought you would hide for a lifetime without showing your face, Gu Xintong said in a strange yin-yang tone. I have thought about it so much that I want you to be a mistress for a lifetime, Gu Nian replied in a low voice. Gu Xintong's face changed and he said, Gu Nian, are you divorcing Aiken or not? Gu Nian gave a cold smile and said, if you don't tell me, I almost forgot. Lu Chenfei and I haven't divorced yet. But it seems like you and he even have children. Why, are you in a hurry? She left without saying goodbye 4 years ago. Lu Chenfei has been looking for her and wants to divorce her. She doesn't mind being Mrs. Lu, but she also doesn't want him and Gu Xintong to achieve their wish so quickly. Gu Nian, what are you talking about? It's just a broken shoe that has been played with by someone, thinking that having a facelift can make Ah Chen change his mind. I'll tell you, Ah Chen said, you're so rigid and uninteresting. He used to marry you because he was at the appropriate age and wanted to find a fertility machine that could pass down the lineage. But you're pregnant with someone else's wild seed, still a triplet. I never expected that on your wedding night, the old man I found for you had such strong reproductive ability. Gu Xintong hugged her chest with both hands and had a sharp and sarcastic expression on her face. It turns out that the man in the hotel on her wedding night was brought by Gu Xintong. Glancing at her red lips tightly pursed, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped her. Gu Xintong, I think you quite like being a mistress, so let's continue to be your mistress. This stepsister has been arrogant and domineering since childhood, relying on the love of her family. How could she be so despicable? Gu Xintong didn't expect Gu Nian to dare to hit her, so he immediately covered his face and stared at her incredulously. Gu Nian, do you dare to hit me? Shouldn't the mistress fight? Gu Nian turned around and left, but didn't want to bump into someone's arms. Be careful. This sounded Lu Chenfei. Glancing at the coldness in his eyes, he lifted his gaze and glanced at Lu Chenfei. Lu Chenfei was also looking at her, only feeling a glimmer in front of her. What a beautiful woman. Which daughter is it? How come he has never seen it before? Miss, are you okay? How could Lu Chenfei not recognize her? Gu Nian Xingmo's eyes flowed as she thought of Gu Xintong behind her, and she restrained all the emotions in her eyes. It hurts so much, you just stepped on me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Mississippi, may I accompany you to the hospital for a check? Up. Lu Chenfei supported her, pretending to be as gentle as jade. Gu Nian touched his foot, and in Yuguangzhong, he saw Gu Xintong walking over with high heels. Ah Chen, what are you doing? Xintong, I accidentally bumped into this young lady just now, Lu Chenfei smiled. Gu Xintong pulled him apart and said, Ah Chen, she's Gu Nian. What? Lu Chenfei looked at Gu Nian's elegant and refined face, staring blankly. Are you concerned? It's me, said Gu Nian with a cool gaze. It took Lu Chenfei a great deal of effort to believe that the woman in front of him, who was incredibly beautiful, was a concern. He calmed down and said, Gu Nian, just come back. When will we go through the divorce procedures? Gu Nian's face turned cold. Do you want me to go back with you to handle the procedures? Sure. But please kneel down with Gu Xintong and beg me. Gu Nian, don't go too far. Lu Chenfei's face changed slightly. I'm just going too far. What can you do to me? Feeling too lazy to talk nonsense to him, I just walked past him. Lu Chenfei grabbed her and said, Gu Nian, you have been unwilling to divorce. Are you still in love with me? Gu Nian. I have seen someone who is narcissistic, but I have never seen someone with such thick skin. Gu Nian shook him off and said, Lu Chenfei, it used to be me who only took a liking to you when I was blind. Even if all the men in the world died, I couldn't possibly fall in love with you. She met Lu Chenfei in college, and the reason she chose to marry him was because she felt that he treated her well. She wants to leave that lukewarm home quickly and start her own small family. I didn't expect. Looking at his slender figure, Lu Chenfei's black eyes remained calm and he said a word of unease. Women are always talking nonsense. Gu Nian really doesn't love him. He is her first love. Aiken, what are you looking at? Do you think your sister has become more beautiful and you don't want to divorce her? Gu Xintong was furious when she saw Lu Chenfei staring straight at Gu Nian's back. Lu Chenfei's eyes flickered slightly. It's nothing, our son is already 4 years old. How could I not divorce her? He just did have some ideas. The current concerns are different from before. If she doesn't want a divorce, then he will do as she wishes. Isn't it okay to stick to each other like this? So why don't you quickly check where she lives? Gu Xintong was restless and said, Aiken, I've been with you for 4 years, and we haven't had any reputation or status yet. Do you know how those ladies in the upper class look at me at every party? She didn't really care about Lu Chenfei, who was still a commoner. Unexpectedly, Lu Chenfei became a descendant of a noble family and had to marry the person he looked down upon the most. She couldn't let Gu Nian overwhelm her, so she used all her strength to hook Lu Chenfei up to her bed, asking him to agree to divorce Gu Nian and marry her. Lu Chenfei agreed, but her damn concern deliberately hid and refused to divorce, making her a laughingstock in the upper class of Yuncheng. I see, as long as I return to my home country, it will be easy to handle. Lu Chenfei comforted a few words and called his subordinates to inquire about the residence of Cha Gu Nian. On the other side. Suburban courtyard. Second brother, handsome Shu 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 has been lying for a day and a night. Why haven't she woken up and pinched? Can she have already died? I don't think so. Mommy's medical skills are so amazing, she can definitely save her life. That's right. I want Shui Shu Shu to wake up quickly and play with me. He's so big, he must be able to do a lot of work. I want him to help mommy sun dry herbs and catch insects for flowers and plants. How noisy. Lu Han's furrowed brow slightly and slowly opened his eyes. What caught the eye were 2 cute little faces carved with jade powder. He was stunned for a moment, his thoughts still drifting. Ah, handsome Shu Shu woke up. Big brother, come on, this uncle is awake. Erbao and Xiao Xiao looked excited. De Bao heard the commotion and walked in with short legs. Her tender little face remained as serious as ever. He stood by the bed like a little adult, calmly speaking, are you awake? Lu Han's head was still a bit groggy. Looking at the three cute little treasures in front of him, he thought for a moment that he had dreamed of going to the country of little people. After a while, he finally spoke up and asked, "Where is this?" "The suburbs of Yuncheng." "Did your adults save me?" His voice was a bit hoarse. Although he looked weak, his aura around him became cold and strong because he woke up. "Shoo shoo, it was my mom who saved you," Xiao Xiao said first. Lu Han's gaze slowly shifted to her face, touching her sparkling eyes, and his eyebrows and eyes couldn't help but soften. What a soft and glutinous little girl. These three people should be triplets, right? Lu Han's gaze fell on Bao again, and his deep eyes moved slightly. "The appearance of these two brothers, uncle, do you still remember where you are from and why you fell from such a high place?" Bao asked curiously. Lu Han's thin lips lightly pursed, and a sharp dark light flashed through his cold and sharp black eyes. His car was tampered with and crashed into a guardrail on the highway, plunging off a cliff. Fortunately, he jumped out of the out-of-control car in time. When he fell off the cliff, he was blocked by a big tree again, which saved him from death. "Uncle, have you lost your memory?" Bao widened his eyes when he saw that Lu Han was silent. Lu Han regained his composure and slightly tugged at the corner of his dry mouth. Bao continued, "Uncle, my mom put in a lot of effort to save you. If you have amnesia and can't afford medical expenses, you can only work for us to repay the kindness of saving your life. This child is quite thoughtful." A faint smile flashed in Lu Han's eyes as he looked at Bao, who had remained silent and pretended to be mature. "Are you their brother? Where's your mom?" "Mommy went out to buy something," Bao said with a small face. "Is your mom a doctor?" What about your dad?" Bao frowned and said, "You have a lot of questions." Lu Hanchen. What a proud little doll. Shui Shu Shu, we don't have a dad to compare us to. You look very similar to us, but unfortunately you're not our dad to compare either. Little pout, a little regretful. My brother has already told them that this handsome corn has nothing to do with them. Lu Han's eyes sank and his heart moved slightly. These three children do not have a father, and judging from their appearance, they do have some similarities with the Lu family. Bao, Bao, Xiao Xiao, I'm back. A woman's pleasant voice came from outside the door. Three small eyes lit up and ran out in unison. Mommy, wake up handsome Shu Shu. Xiao Xiao pounced at Gu Nian and said first. Wake up. Then let mommy go take a look at him first. Gu Nian raised his eyebrows and asked Bao to take the two little ones to play, while he entered the room. Why is Chapter 3 called Ah-See? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Hanchen lay on the bed, watching Gu Nian sit by the bed. His thin lips lifted lightly and he said, Did you save me? Yes. Gu Nian probed his forehead and found that he still had a slight fever. She reached out to pulse him again, her expression focused. The sunlight outside shone through the doors and windows, creating a faint soft glow on her face. Lu Han looked at her beautiful features and didn't expect the person who saved him to be so young and beautiful. He moved his body and struggled to sit up. After finishing his pulse, he quickly pressed him down and said, Don't move, you can't get up temporarily. Lu Hanchen also sensed something was wrong. He furrowed his brows and said, What do you mean? Your leg is broken, so you can't get out of bed yet. His leg is broken. Lu Han's fingers suddenly tightened, and his face turned ugly. He tried to move his legs and found that there was really no sensation in his legs. He survived the disaster but became disabled. Lu Han's pupils shrank, and his breath froze instantly, even the surrounding air became a bit cold. Don't get excited, it's not good for you. Looking at Lu Han's stern expression, Gu Nian said in a low voice, Don't worry, you won't be unable to get out of bed all the time. I can cure you. She can cure his leg disease. Lu Han's eyes lit up as if someone had pulled him from the cold bottom of the lake to the shore, and his breathing instantly became smooth. How long does it take for my leg to heal? At least 2 to 3 months, at most a year and a half, I can't say for sure, Gu Nian said truthfully. Can't you say for sure? Is her medical skills really good or not? Aren't you a doctor? Why can't you say for sure? I want you to cure my leg disease as soon as possible. Lu Han's voice was deep and cold, habitually giving orders. Gu Nian glanced at him and said, "Did you just command me? I was kind enough to save you, so you treated your lifesaver with this attitude." Lu Han pursed his thin lips lightly and looked at her carefully. Are you really confident that you can cure me so young? So you don't trust her? If it hadn't been for her acupuncture and moxibustion, would he have died? If you don't believe me, just let your family come and pick you up and leave. I'm not in a hurry, I insist on treating you, she said, looking at her red lips. Let someone pick him up and leave. Now is not the time yet. Lu Han's eyes remained calm and silent. Seeing him silent, Gu Nian asked, "Give me your family's phone number. I'll do my best to have your family come and pick you up." Lu Han frowned slightly and said, "I didn't say I don't believe you." Looking at him with concern, the man had a slightly more sharp expression when he was awake than when he was asleep. Thinking of the news she heard in the mall, she asked, "What's your name and where are you from?" Lu Hanchen's black eyes sank slightly, and he heard Gu Nian say, "There's big news today. It's said that the newly appointed CEO of the Lu Group has had a car accident, and his life and death are uncertain." You shouldn't be Lu Hanchen, right? Did the news about his accident hit the hot search? A dark light flashed through Lu Han's deep black eyes. No, it's not. He cannot reveal his whereabouts for the time being, he needs to uncover the mastermind behind the scenes. Really not. With a look of concern, he explored. No, Lu Hanzhen denied. Gu Nianxing squinted her eyes and said, "But the materials of your clothes are quite good. Although it is damaged, the workmanship clearly comes from a master." Upon hearing the words, clothes, Lu Hanzhen suddenly realized that his body under the blanket was approaching a vacuum state. His eyes darkened and he looked at Gu Nian. "Did you help me take off my clothes? Otherwise." Gu Nian retorted. Lu Hanchen. She has seen him through. If you're not Lu Hanchen, then who the hell are you? Looking at the cold and heavy landing, I saw his temperament was cold and heavy. Suddenly, my apricot eyes shrank slightly. You shouldn't be the black boss, being chased by enemies and falling off a cliff, right? Lu Hanchen. Her imagination can be further enriched. Mommy, Shui Shu Shu has lost her memory. Gu Xiaoxiao was peeking at the door, running happily with her short legs. De Bao and Air Bao followed closely behind. Have you lost your memory? Looking at Lu Hanchen with suspicion and concern. Lu Han's eyes sank and his heart moved slightly, and he let out a sigh. Since the children have made excuses for him, let him forget for now. Mommy, it seems that Uncle doesn't have the money to pay for the diagnosis, so we can only ask him to stay and help us with the labor to offset the diagnosis. Air Bao gave Gu Nian an idea. Gu Nian raised his eyebrows and his gaze swept over Lu Han's hand. The man's hands are slender and beautiful, with a thin cocoon covering the palms. Can someone who does great things be a laborer? Moreover, he is still disabled now. You help me up, Lu Hanchen suddenly said. What's wrong? I need to use the restroom. Gu Nian skillfully took out a urinal from under the bed and pretended to place it on the bed. Wait a moment. Lu Han's pupils shrank slightly, pointing at the urinal and couldn't believe it. You want me to be convenient in bed? Otherwise. Gu Nian retorted. I need to go to the restroom. Lu Hanchen squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. The wheelchair hasn't arrived yet, I can't help you. Gu Nian looked at Lu Han's dark face and asked, are you going up or holding it back? Lu Han stared at him with a heavy gaze, his thin lips pursed tightly. Glancing back at him, he remained indifferent. The atmosphere is a bit sticky. Gu Xiaoxiao looked at this and that on the side, smiling and saying, Shu Shu, you don't have to be shy anymore. Mommy takes care of people very gently. Xiao Naibao's eyes are bright and her voice is soft and sticky. Lu Han's cold and hard facial lines unconsciously softened a bit. Should we go up or not? Gu Nian asked again. Lu Han's hen closed his eyes and squeezed out a word, up. Tell me earlier. Gu Nian reached into the quilt and pulled down his shorts with familiarity, then stuffed the urinal in. Lu Sai wore a handsome face, and when he saw a group of people staring at him, he couldn't let out any urge to urinate. You ask the children to go out first. He has never been treated so rudely by anyone since he was so old. Dabao, take your younger brothers and sisters out first. Gu Nian gave a command, and his heart said that this mysterious man is really hairy. Dabao responded and walked out, holding hands one by one. Listening to the gurgling sound of water, I waited for Lu Hanchen's convenience before turning around. Okay. Gu Nian leaned into the bed again and took the urinal away. Watching the slender figure of the woman disappear from the door, Lu Han let out a deep sigh. He looked around and his gaze fell on the bedside table beside him. There is a small phone over there, which should be from a triplet. Lu Han pursed his thin lips lightly, reached out for his phone, and dialed out. Outside. After cleaning the urinal, Dabao was called upstairs. Dabao, can you help mommy check and see what the person in charge of the Lu group, Lu Hanchen, looks like? Dabao is very intelligent, he can think of something in an instant. Mommy, do you suspect that uncle is the ruler of the Lu family group, Lu Han's hen? It's possible, Gu Nian nodded. Dabao entered his room and took out his computer, sitting upright. White and tender little fingers were tapping on the keyboard with a clattering sound. After a while, he furrowed his small eyebrows. Mommy, I couldn't find any photos of Lu Hanchen. Is Lu Hanchen so mysterious? Gu Nian raised his eyebrows and glanced at Lu Hanchen's information. Lu Hanchen is 28 years old this year and the only son in the family. He had already obtained dual master's degrees in finance and law at the age of 16. He is an extraordinary person with high intelligence and education. Last year, he just took over the Lu group, and in just over a year, Lu's performance has already reached a new high. Such a business leader should be a thorn in the eye of many people. Okay, let's just forget if we don't find it. The person she saved was not better than Lu Hanchen. To avoid causing unnecessary trouble for oneself, Gu Nian went downstairs and went to the kitchen to get the decocted medicine. Pushing open the room on the first floor, I saw Lu Hanchen closing his eyes and recuperating. Wake up, it's time to take your medicine. Lu Hanchen opened his eyes and looked at the bowl of black medicine, his eyebrows furrowing subconsciously. A woman's scolding suddenly flashed through her mind. Open your mouth and spit it out again, I really belittle you. He thought he was dreaming, but now it seems that this woman fed him medicine when he was unconscious. What are you looking at? Are you drinking it yourself, or should I squeeze your nose and drink it? Gu Nian asked. Lu Han cast a deep glance at her and said displeasedly, are you a woman? Can you be a little gentler? Gu Nian chuckled in his heart, big brother, remember one thing, people who eat free food have no human rights. Lu Hanchen. After a while, he will definitely use a lot of money to make her flatter and please him. Open your mouth. After Lu Han's hen finished drinking his medicine, Gu Nian saw his eyebrows furrow and stuffed the plums into his mouth. The sour and sweet taste of dried plums masks the bitterness of the medicine. Lu Han's furrowed brow slightly relaxed. Gu Nian looked at him and said, "Do you really have amnesia? You don't remember what your name is anymore?" Lu Han's eyes flickered slightly. "I don't remember." "Then I can't keep calling you, hey, can I?" After thinking for a moment, "Otherwise, I'll call you Ah-si in the future." Lu Hanchen. Ah-si. This name is so casual. Why is it called Ah-si? Because I have 3 starving children at home, and now I have an additional one who can't take care of himself. I'll take care of an extra cheap son. Lu Hanchen. He doesn't want a mother who is even younger than him. Thinking of the 3 children who were carving jade, a hint of exploration flashed in Lu Han's eyes. Where is the child's father? Upon hearing these words, Gu Nian's face softened slightly. "Ah-si, we're not familiar, please don't pry into each other's privacy." Lu Han's hen looked at her and said in silence, "It was my rudeness. If you don't want to say it, I won't ask in the future." As she hesitated to speak, she pulled out a tissue and took it from him as he was about to spit out a plum blossom. The sunlight outside gradually faded away, and it was already dusk. Lu Han suddenly smelled the aroma of the cake at the tip of his nose. His stomach was a bit empty, and his Adam's apple rolled slightly. "Who's cooking food at home?" "My 3 babies are baking cakes." Lu Hanchen. 3 children are baking cake. Do you have such a young child make cakes for them? They like to mess around and eat, why should I stop them? A soft light flashed in Gu Nian's eyes. Her treasures are truly the best gifts bestowed upon her by heaven. De Bao has exceptional intelligence at a young age. Bao likes to follow her into the kitchen as soon as she can walk. A little older will pick and wash vegetables for her. My daughter is soft and cute. Every day when I hear her cute call, "Mommy," my heart is melted. "Mom, the cake is baked, come and eat it quickly." Okay, Gu Nian walked out holding a medicine bowl. "Mommy, can Shui Shu Shu eat cake now?" Xiao Xiao asked. "Not currently available." "Why?" "Because he is still weak in his stomach, he can only drink congee." "Okay." Outside came the chattering laughter of the mother and son, and Lu Han's hen looked at the light and shadow outside the window, feeling that the air had become much fresher. When we arrived at the meal, Gu Nian came in with a bowl of porridge. "Let's have something to eat." Lu Hanchen was helped up, looked at the bowl of plain rice porridge, and asked, "Don't you have any dishes with congee? What kind of side dish do you want? Dried turnip, pickled vegetables, or fermented bean curd?" Gu Nian asked. Lu Han frowned slightly and said, "Is there nothing else?" He has always lived a life of luxury since he was so big, and has never eaten anything that Gu Nian mentioned. "No." Gu Nian looked at him and said, "What's wrong? You don't like the side dishes I mentioned? Do you really want them?" "Yes." Lu Hanchen looked at her with a determined attitude and responded obediently. Gu Nian walked out of the room and brought several small dishes. Lu Hanchen takes a mouthful of congee and hesitantly picks up a pair of pickles. The sour taste at the entrance brightened his eyes. I never expected such a dirty-looking little dish to be so appetizing. "Another bowl." Lu Hanchen asked for another bowl of congee after drinking it. Gu Nian Shumei raised her eyebrows and said, "With such a big appetite, it's really expensive to have an extra cheap son." Lu Hanchen. He just drinks an extra bowl of congee. How much can it cost? Can this woman be a little more stingy? At night, everything fell silent, and the earth fell into a deep sleep. Lu Han's hen lay on the bed, listening as the door lock was gently loosened and his sharp eyes suddenly opened. Chapter 4. Same symptoms as his son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Lu. The person walked briskly towards the bedside, with a hint of excitement and joy in their voice. Lu Hanchen looked at his special assistant's disheveled and rustic expression, his handsome sword eyebrows furrowing slightly. "Monsoon, have you been robbed?" "No, there are many mechanisms set up in the small courtyard." Ji Feng thought of what he had accidentally stepped on just now, and then the sand flying in the sky pounced on his face, which made him secretly marvel. "I don't know who set up the mechanism in the small courtyard. And not just in one place." Lu Han raised his sword eyebrows and lightly hooked the corners of his mouth. "The organization should be handled by this family. I think it's quite thoughtful. After all, a woman living in the suburbs with 3 children should pay attention to safety. Mr. Lu, fortunately you're okay, otherwise." The monsoon looked at Lu Hanchen, with slightly red eyes. "Don't get excited, how is the situation at home?" Lu Han snapped back to his senses. "The old man heard that you had an accident and was rushed to the hospital. Now your father and your uncles are taking turns accompanying him. Grandpa has entered the hospital. Ji Feng, find an opportunity to secretly tell him the news that I am still alive and make him feel at ease." Lu Han's face darkened slightly. "Yes." The monsoon responded hesitantly and said, "Mr. Lu, aren't you going back now?" "I won't go back for now." Lu Han's face turned cold. "My car has been tampered with by someone. Since someone wants me to die, I have to see what they will do next. The Lu family is a large family, and the leaders of the Lu family have always been inherited by their eldest son. However, in his generation, his grandfather firmly opposed public opinion and insisted on making him the ruler of the Lu family. As a result, he became a thorn in his side and a thorn in his flesh. Mr. Lu, are you really okay? Do you need me to find Dr. Han to come and treat you?" The monsoon asked anxiously as she saw Lu Han's hen lying down all along. "No need, the doctor who saved me was very professional. My leg was broken, and she said she could cure me," said Lu Hanchen. Ji Feng's face was filled with astonishment, and his gaze fell on Lu Han's legs. At this moment, there was a faint sound of footsteps coming from outside. Lu Han's hen looked at the monsoon and said, "You go first. I will contact you if there is anything." Ji Feng felt uneasy in his heart, but he still followed orders and left quickly. Lu Hanchen closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. Not long after, the door was gently pushed open again. Lu Hanchen smelled a faint fragrance on his nose. It was not a precious perfume, but a natural fragrance unique to women. Her cool fingers lightly probed his forehead before taking it away. Lu Hanchen had been pretending to sleep all along, but suddenly felt a little itchy all over. His eyebrows instinctively furrowed slightly, and then he opened his eyes. "Did you wake up?" He paused as he prepared to leave. He just woke up today, and she was afraid he might have something to do in the middle of the night, so she went downstairs to see him. "I didn't expect to wake him up." Lu Hanchen felt an increasing itching on his body. He raised his hand and scratched his shoulder. "There's a slight itching on his body." Itching on the body. Gu Nian was momentarily stunned, his gaze fixed on his exposed skin in the air, his gaze slightly condensed. At this moment, red dots appeared on Lu Hanchen's arms. "This is an allergic symptom. Don't scratch." Gu Nian quickly lifted his pajamas to check, and indeed saw a large red rash on his body. "You have an allergy." "Allergy." Lu Hanchen wanted to scratch, but could only restrain himself from scratching. "Is there something wrong with the medicine you gave me to drink?" "Impossible." Looking at him with concern, something flashed through my mind. "Are you allergic to pickled vegetables?" It was all right before. It was only after he had drunk congee that he developed allergy. "And what he eats the most is pickled vegetables." "I don't know, I haven't eaten it before," Lu Han's hen blurted out. "You used to." He glanced at him with suspicion. "What I mean is, I don't remember if I've ever eaten this kind of thing before." Lu Han's eyes flickered. He is currently in a state of amnesia. I almost said I missed my word. Gu Nian didn't delve deeply because she was secretly surprised. How could this mysterious man be as allergic to pickled vegetables as his eldest son? When De Bao was 3 years old, she once made her own pickles and gave him a taste of porridge. That night, De Bao became allergic. The symptoms are exactly the same as those of this man now. I'm itching, can't I really scratch? Lu Han's hen couldn't help but ask. Looking back, he said, I can't scratch you. Please hold back and I'll give you an injection right away. Lu Han's thin lips clenched tightly, his fingers curled up and down, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Between itching and pain, he would rather choose pain. Gu Nian brought a acupuncture and moxibustion bag and quickly helped him apply acupuncture. Lu Hanchen looked at her cold face and couldn't help but ask, is there no other way for me to quickly relieve this itching? He lost some of his voice due to suppressing the itching. Gu Nian let out a breath and said, I really lost to you. Don't move around, I'll help you rub it. Lu Hanchen remained motionless, watching as Gu Nian unbuttoned his pajamas and his fair little hand gently caressed him. The originally unbearable itching was slightly relieved by her touch. Lu Han let out a deep breath and looked up at Gu Nian. The woman lowered her head, a strand of mischievous hair swaying lightly in her ear. The beautiful and unparalleled little face showed a hint of seriousness. Looking down, she saw her fair and slender swan neck, emitting a porcelain white glow under the illumination of the light. On a quiet night, the fragrance of women permeates the air, invading human senses. Lu Han looked at her and a scene from 4 years ago suddenly flashed through his mind. That night, the woman's hands were also so soft Lu Hanchen only felt a little dry mouth and tongue, and the places he had been touched by seemed even more itchy. That kind of itching, unlike allergic itching, is like a feather gently brushing over his heart. Ah, see, what are you thinking? Gu Nian rubbed it for him and his sharp eyes noticed something was wrong with Lu Hanchen. His breathing was slightly heavy, and blood seemed to surge to a spot. A hint of embarrassment flashed in Lu Han's deep eyes, but it didn't show on his face. You are a doctor, and you should know that sometimes physiological reactions are beyond people's control. Gu Nian. So she was kind enough to relieve his discomfort, but she became his imaginary object. Gu Nian quickly withdrew his hand and buttoned all the buttons on his pajamas. Ah, see, I see that you have an allergy because you ate the pickled vegetables I soaked. I won't argue with you. Otherwise, I will definitely give you a shot to become a demon for a long time. Lu Hanchen. Is physiological response within his control? This woman is tough enough. Lu Hanchen looked at her cold and pretty face, closed his eyes, and felt a wave of irritability in his heart. I'm itching again. What a torture. Not long after, Gu Nian pulled out the silver needle. Lu Han closed his eyes and listened as she closed the door and left, slowly opening his eyes. After acupuncture and moxibustion, his itching seemed to be relieved. Looking at the empty room, he pursed his thin lips lightly and his black eyes were dark and lifeless. The next day, the birds chirped in the morning, as if reminding people that a new day had begun. After waking up, Lu Hanchen moved his body and found that the itching was no longer on his body, and the rash had also faded. However, there is still no sensation in the lower body. This situation of being unable to control oneself is really frustrating. His face darkened slightly, and he clenched his fists and struck hard on the side of the bed. The door was pushed open and Gu Nian walked in. I got angry early in the morning. If you break my bed, I'll sell you for a loss. This woman is cruel to him. Lu Han's mood was not beautiful, and he said coldly, please treat me well, otherwise you will regret it. This man, without the emperor's life, actually knows how to present the emperor's genealogy. Gu Nian's heart was filled with joy. He first checked his allergy symptoms, and then reached out and pressed his lower abdomen. Don't give me a hard time, otherwise I'll make you regret it now. Lu Hanchen. One night passed, and my bladder was already filled with urine. She just pressed it, almost making him unable to hold it. This woman Lu Han's face was as black as ink, with a pair of sharp eyes staring at him with concern. Gu Nian didn't disobey him. Do you want me to serve you? If you do, put away your old man's temper. Lu Han took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and barely suppressed his inner anger. Under someone else's protection, he endured it. Seeing that he remained silent, Gu Nian did not embarrass him and skillfully took off his underwear to serve him. The wheelchair will arrive soon, and it cost me another sum of money. I am truly a bodhisattva. Upon hearing these words, Lu Han burst out, I will repay you in the future. Isn't it just money? He has nothing else, he has plenty of money. That's what you said. Gu Nian didn't take his words to heart and tidied up for him before leaving the room. Not long after, the door was pushed open again and a small head poked in. Shui Shu Shu, have you woken up? It's the little girl who came down. Lu Han's face softened unconsciously. Good morning, little one. Gu Xiaoxiao was wearing a milky yellow cartoon pajama, her hair was not tied, and she ran to the bedside in small slippers. Shui Shu Shu, did you sleep well last night? The cute little milk voice made Lu Hanchen smile slightly. It's okay. Even if he didn't sleep well last night, seeing the big smiling eyes of Xianangbao, he couldn't help but want to make her happy. Shui Shu Shu, your mouth is so dry. Are you thirsty? I'll get you some water to drink. Gu Xiaoan noticed that Lu Han's lips were a bit dry, so she looked left and right and went to take the teacup that was placed on the side. Thank you, little one. I'll have it later, Lu Han said with a warm heart. I'll feed you a drink. At this moment, the door was pushed open, and as she watched her daughter about to feed Lu Hanchen with water, she was speechless. Xiao Xiao, why are you running around so early in the morning? Come and comb your hair quickly. My daughter is so old, she hasn't even enjoyed this kind of treatment. Mommy, the handsome corn is thirsty, Gu Xiao said with a small blinking of her big eyes. What should mommy do if she's also thirsty? Gu Nian helped Lu Han's hen up and asked intentionally. After a moment of thought, Gu Xiao put the cup into her arms and said, I'll feed Shui Shu Shu to drink first, and then go get water for mommy to drink. Gu Nian. Is this really her biological daughter? I turned my elbow out so quickly. On the other side. Lu Qinfei and Gu Xintong are on their way to the suburbs. Aiken, does her sister and her 3 children really live with her grandmother's house now? Gu Xintong asked. Yes, Lu Qinfei responded. What if she still refuses to divorce? I won't do it, Lu Qinfei's eyes flickered, it's better not to. A cold gleam flashed in Gu Xintong's eyes. The two quickly arrived outside the small building where Gu Nian lived. At this moment, the wheelchair specially ordered by Gu Nian for Lu Hanchen has arrived. As soon as she finished installing, she helped Lu Hanchen sit up and pushed him out to breathe fresh air in the front yard. Gu Xintong got off the car and saw this scene from a distance. Oh, why is there a disabled person in my sister's family? Is this her lover? Aiken, don't stand foolishly, hurry up and say something. Lu Qinfei patted Gu Xintong's shoulder and looked at Gu Nian, only wanting to know who the man in the room was. Gu Nian, who exactly is that man? It's none of your business who he is. If you didn't come to apologize, please go back. Feeling too lazy to pay attention to the two of them, he turned around and left. Gu Xintong was so angry that he shook the fence desperately. Gu Nian, do you want to be shameless? 4 years ago, I didn't know how to behave and messed with men, giving birth to 3 wild seeds. Why, now that I can't survive outside, do I want to rely on our family Aiken? The footsteps of concern paused, then suddenly turned around with a cold and secluded gaze. Who are you calling a wild breed? I. Gu Xintong caught her gaze and inexplicably trembled with fear. Upon reflection, she was stunned by the concern and suddenly became furious. A child without a father, isn't it a wild breed? Gu Nian, you're really shameless. Her worried face turned completely cold, and she rolled up her shirt liner and walked towards the fence. At this moment, a milky sound came from behind. Don't bully my mom. De Bao rushed out of the room. Follow Erbao and Xiao Xiao behind you. With a pause in her footsteps, she turned to look at the three small breasts that rushed towards her feet like small steel cannons, her eyebrows and eyes softened. Didn't you stay at home? How did you get out? Because mommy, you are too kind, we are afraid these two bad people will bully you. De Bao's gaze swept over Lu Qinfei and Gu Xintong, his small face cold. That's right, big rascal, old lady, hurry up and leave, otherwise don't blame us for being impolite. Bao clenched his small fist and angrily said. Lu Qinfei is still in shock. He knew that Gu Nian had given birth to 3 children, but he never knew that the 3 children looked so delicate. And his facial features are surprisingly somewhat similar to him. Gu Xintong on the side was also shocked. Are these the 3 children born of care? How come you look so beautiful? What did that little brat call himself just now? Auntie. What do you call me? Auntie. Are you having trouble with your eyes? Gu Xintong's airway. Bao snorted coldly, oh, I called you wrong. You look old and ugly, and have a bad heart. You should be called an old witch. Yes, old witch, hurry up and leave our house. With a small waist inserted, she said with a fierce expression. You. Gu Xintong almost vomited blood in anger. On the side, Lu Qinfei's gaze remained fixed on the 3 little ones. Gu Nian, whose are these 3 children? Are they my children? Upon hearing his words, Gu Xintong's eyes widened. Aiken, how could these 3 children be yours? Haven't you never touched her before? On our wedding night, you were with me too. Lu Qinfei glanced at her suspiciously. In my impression, he did not touch Gu Nian, but what if he made a mistake? On his wedding night, he was too drunk. Would Gu Nian be the one who slept, not Gu Xintong? Aiken, what kind of gaze are you looking at? Do you suspect that I'm lying to you? We have a son, do you want to do a paternity test? Gu Xintong shouted in anger. Lu Qinfei hurriedly said, all right, be gentle. I didn't say I didn't believe you. It's just these 3 children. Lu Qinfei, you can rest assured that these 3 children have no blood relationship with you. After all, how could your poor genes give birth to 3 such lovely babies? The concern inside the fence made a soft mocking sound. Lu Qinfei choked and his face turned ugly for a moment. Yes, the old witch and the big bad guy can only give birth to bad children. Gu Xiao inserted her small hand into her waist, with a fierce expression. That's right. Bao made faces at the 2 of them. De Bao's small face was cold, although he didn't speak, his momentum was strong. Lu Qinfei's face changed for a moment when he was scolded. Gu Nian, how did you teach children? That's right, you 3 uneducated wild breeds are just lacking discipline. Gu Xintong shouted and cursed loudly. A cold color flashed through the eyes of concern. Gu Xintong, why don't you curse again? I just cursed, you guys. A sharp whistle swirled in the air. The next second, 4 dogs came running towards Lu Qinfei and Gu Xintong, barking and grinning. Rhubarb, Huang, Xiaohe, Dehua, bite them. Bao gave orders to the 4 dogs. Wicked dog, go away, go away. Gu Xintong's face turned pale with fear, and she hid in Lu Qinfei's arms. Lu Qinfei also looked frightened and hugged Gu Xintong, lifting his leg to kick the dog that was rushing towards him. Get out of here, get out of here. Hiss, his pants were bitten by a dog, and the next second, his entire pants were pulled off. Lu Chen's face turned red as he ignored Gu Xintong, shouting and cursing at his dog while pulling his pants and running towards the car. Chen, wait for me. Gu Xintong's face turned pale as she watched her skirt being bitten by another dog, almost fainting from fear. Xintong, run quickly. Lu Chenfei got into the car and called out to Gu Xintong. Chapter 6. Who did you sleep with all night? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Gu Xintong regained his senses and ran in the direction of the car, enduring fear. Her shoes ran off, and her skirt was torn off, revealing her little inside. Lu Chenfei opened the car door for her and she finally got on. Come back. Air Bao whistled again. 4 dogs ran happily to the fence and wagged their tails at the few people inside. 3 little ones touched the heads of a few dogs and laughed brightly. Gu Nian's mouth also carried a smile. Look, there's no need for her to take action. The 3 little brats have already taught this scumbag couple a lesson for her. In the car, Gu Xintong, who was all disheveled, looked at Gu Nian with a smile on his face and was furious. Aiken, are we just leaving like this? Lu Chenfei took a deep breath and calmed his panicked mood. What else can we do? Otherwise, you should kneel down and apologize to her. Is this still a concern he knows? The previous gentle and obedient concern towards him has completely disappeared. Now she is like a thorny rose, making people dare not approach. Do you want me to kneel down and apologize to her? Dreaming. Gu Xintong hated to speak out, and as she watched Gu Nian walk inside with the 3 little ones, she rolled down the car window. Gu Nian, you white-eyed wolf. After walking for 4 years, have you ever thought about your grandmother? Thanks to her being so kind to you before, you are just an ungrateful person. Upon hearing these words, Gu Nian paused and turned to look at her. Go back and tell grandma that I will go see her tomorrow. She is going back, not only to see her grandmother, but also to meet with the Gu family. Okay, we'll be waiting for you at home. You must come. Bitch, when she goes back, make sure she signs the divorce agreement. Gu Xintong rolled up the car window, a hint of sharpness flashing in her eyes. Lu Chenfei looked at Gu Nian's slender figure, his black eyes fixed. Xintong, who did you care about sleeping with all night? Inexplicably, he has a bit of a taste. He has been in a relationship with Gu Nian for several years, why hasn't he slept with her? For nothing, it's cheaper than other men. Either Mr. Li or Mr. Huang, I can't remember clearly. Gu Xintong's eyes flickered. At first, she thought about destroying her worries and fulfilling herself. So after the banquet ended, someone casually called an old man and entered the room where Gu Nian was staying. Later on, she entangled with Lu Chenfei all night. How can you remember who went in to sleep and care? Is it the person you arranged? Lu Chenfei started the car with a hint of displeasure in his eyes. Gu Xintong glanced at him and said with grievance, am I not trying to get you? If I didn't love you, could I be willing to be scolded by someone behind my back for 4 years? She is thoughtful in order to replace her worries and become a wealthy tycoon, living a life of high society. But over the past 4 years, she has lived a comfortable life, yet she has been poking her spine without any reason. She's almost furious. Lu Chenfei was somewhat absent-minded and responded perfunctorily. If he had known that Gu Nian would have become so beautiful, he would not have been confused by Gu Xintong. In the small courtyard, Gu Nian walked into the room holding the 3 little ones and suddenly thought of a question. You 3, did you know early on who the 2 of you were? Otherwise, they wouldn't be shouting at each old witch like a big villain. Mommy, my brother told us about these 2 people, said Air Bao. Looking at De Bao, I saw him bulging his small chest and looking proud. These little brats. With a soft heart, he smiled and touched their little heads. There are 3 little people at home, and she really has no privacy at all. Inside the room, Lu Han's hen watched the entire process and couldn't help but want to applaud. What a tough mother and son. Amazing. Shoo shoo, let's drive away all the bad guys who bully mommy. As soon as Xiao Xiao entered the door, she leaned against Lu Hanchen and spoke with a milky voice. Lu Han raised his eyebrows and asked knowingly, oh. Who are they? One of them is the big bad guy who abandoned mommy, and the other is the bad ant who snatched mommy's husband, Xiao Xiao said angrily. Sister, don't talk to strangers about these things. De Bao furrowed his brows and spoke like an older brother. But Shu Shu is not a stranger. He lives in our house and is a member of our family. Xiao Xiao tilted her head and thought for a moment, and just now Shu Shu had already heard our conversation. De Bao choked and glanced at Lu Hanchen, who was very interested in listening to them, but remained silent. Sister, don't talk back to Big Brother. Big Brother is telling you not to always make a fool of handsome uncles. Bao helped De Bao say something. I didn't mean to, Big Brother and Second Brother, you bullied me again. Xiaodu protested with a pink little mouth. Seeing the three of them about to start a scene, he smiled and said, all right, you two are not allowed to bully your sister. Let's take her to play. De Bao and Bao are very obedient. Go and take care of your younger sister. With a small snort, she proudly turned her head away and looked at Lu Han's hen. I don't want to play with you guys. Shui Shu Shu, when can you stand up and play with me? Lu Han is naturally indifferent and doesn't like to deal with small creatures like children. But now I suddenly realized that children are quite interesting. Especially this little girl, her speech is soft and sticky, her body is fragrant, and she smiles like a little sun. It's really the rhythm of deceiving one's daughter. I also really want to stand up right away, it depends on your mommy's abilities. Gu Xiao blinked and tilted her head, saying, Shui Shu Shu, my mom is really amazing. She has saved many dying animals. You are the 1, 2, 3 she has saved. The little milk bag is counting with its fingers. Counting makes it impossible to count. She looked conflicted and stared at her fingers in a daze. How cute. Lu Han couldn't help but laugh and reached out to touch her soft hair. Silly sister, don't embarrass yourself. With a disdainful expression on his face, Bao walked over to pull her and said, let's go. Don't count anymore, with your intelligence, you can't count anymore. Xiao Xiao broke free from his hand and angrily crossed his waist. You're making fun of me again. I'm only 4 years old, counting countless numbers is normal, you're the freaks. As she spoke, she looked at Lu Han's hen and sought an alliance. Shui Shu Shu, are you right? Lu Hanchen looked at the two identical little men, smiled and nodded, you're right. These two brothers have an IQ that surpasses their peers by countless times, they are indeed monsters. Hee, I like handsome corn. Little received support, with big black grape-like eyes full of sparkling light. What came to her mind, she asked again, Shui Shu Shu, would you be like a little flower cat saved by mommy, cured and run away without coming back? She really liked that little flower cat, but as soon as it was cured, it disappeared. She was sad for a while. Touching the little one's expectant gaze, Lu Han's deep heart softened. I don't know. After curing him, of course he will leave, but he will still come back to see them. Yeah. Mommy, hurry up and cure the handsome corn. Shaking her hands with care, she acted coquettishly. I didn't expect my daughter to like Lu Hanchen so much. She touched her little head and said, I got it. Girls are more sensitive than boys. My daughter probably yearns for fatherly love. I feel a bit guilty. I'm leaving, silly little sister. Bao goes to pull Xiao Xiao again. Xiao Xiaojiao snorted coquettishly and said, I won't talk to you anymore. From now on, I will only be good with Shui Shu Shu. What a flower-loving little sister. Bad second treasure. Call me second brother. No way, dot. The three little ones just made a fuss and ran to the backyard to play. Being accustomed to such noise, my heart feels soft. Lu Han looked at the soft light in her eyebrows and eyes and asked, "Was that person your ex-husband and sister just now?" "I guess so." Remembering his thoughts, he perfunctorily said a sentence. "An ex-husband who hasn't divorced yet, a sister she won't recognize anymore. Is the child his?" "No, it's not." Worried about not wanting to talk about this topic again, I pushed him into the room and helped him to the bed, placing 2 cushions on him. "It's time to take the medicine, rest after drinking it." "I'll have to drink that bitter Chinese medicine again." Lu Han furrowed his brows and said, "Don't you have Western medicine?" "No." Gu Nian vomited 2 words and brought a bowl of traditional Chinese medicine from the kitchen. Lu Han pursed his thin lips tightly, with a face full of resistance. He would rather get an injection than take medicine. Gu Nian blew the steaming hot medicine and couldn't help but feel amused. "Are you so afraid of taking medicine? Bai Chang is so big, he's not as good as a 3-year-old child." "You're mocking him again." "Don't you have anything to be afraid of?" said Lu Hanchen, feeling unhappy in his heart. "No." Gu Nian casually replied and handed him the medicine bowl. Lu Hanchen took it and closed his eyes to drink it all in one breath. His mouth was full of bitterness, and he took a deep breath, suddenly looking towards a corner amidst his contemptuous and teasing expression. "Look. Mouse." "Ah." Gu Nian let out a loud cry and quickly jumped onto Lu Hanchen's body, tightly hugging him. Chapter 7. Who is he on earth? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Where? Worry of the heavens, fear of the earth, fear of the mice. Lu Han's chest trembled, and his thin lips overflowed with a muffled smile. Isn't there something to be afraid of? He had long learned from his little mouth that he was afraid of mice. Are you playing with me? Gu Nian just realized that just now, Lu Hanchen was intentionally scaring her. No, it's just a lie detector, Lu Hanchen calmly retorted. You. Gu Nian stared at him, his beautiful apricot eyes reflecting the man's smiling face. His facial features are extremely handsome, and his smiling appearance at this moment is more like an iceberg melting, a demon and evil charm. Whose heart is beating vigorously? Glancing down slightly, I realized that my body was tightly attached to him at this moment. She was just in a hurry and actually jumped onto Lu Hanchen's body. A hint of embarrassment flashed in Gu Nian's eyes and he quickly climbed out of bed. Her ears were tinged with a blush, and Lu Han stared at her with deep eyebrows and eyes. Dr. Gu, you forgot to give Hua Mei. No. Gu Nian dropped 2 words and quickly left. The door slammed shut, and Lu Han glanced at his fingers. There, it seems to still retain the softness of women. Her waist is so delicate and soft. Outside, as she caressed her pounding heart, her beautiful apricot eyes were filled with shame and annoyance. Stinky man, how could he play with her? See how she treats him. Lu Han lay in bed all morning, and towards noon, Gu Nian came in to see him. Do you want to use the restroom? Lu Hanchen saw her face cold and thought of the scene in the morning, with a hint of interest flashing in her eyebrows and eyes. No need, but I need to get up. Without hesitation, I helped him onto a wheelchair. Lu Hanchen moved his wheelchair and followed her out of the first floor. I'll go cook. Gu Nian left a sentence and went to the backyard. Lu Han hesitated for a moment and moved his wheelchair to the backyard. On one side of the backyard is the kitchen, and at this moment, the 3 little ones are gathering in the backyard, each busy with their own tasks. Shui Shu Shu, you're getting out of bed again. Gu Xiaoxiao was watching Air Bao peel beans when she saw Lu Han's hen coming. Her eyes lit up and she ran over with a smile on her face. Lu Han lowered his eyebrows and softened his eyes. Are you helping with cooking? Let's help mommy cook, Gu Xiao chuckled. Sister, even though it's me and big brother helping mommy, you only know how to play, Bao rudely revealed. Gu Zhao's big eyes rolled and she said, Mommy said, I am the little princess of the whole family. You need to protect me and share my worries, so all I need to do is have fun. Bao was speechless and said, it's unreasonable. It's clear that you're afraid of the little green worms on the vegetables. Gu Xiaoxiao leaned over to Lu Hanchen and said in a milky voice, the little green worm is very scary, isn't it handsome? Shoo shoo shoo. Lu Hanchen listened to the childish language of the two and found it somewhat amusing. He nodded and unconditionally agreed with Gu Xiaoxiao. Upon seeing this, Bao's black eyes turned and he said, Uncle, since you're awake and don't have a medical consultation fee, you have to help with the work. You can't just eat for free. What do I need to do? Lu Han raised his eyebrows without refuting. Here, help me peel an onion. Bao handed a washed onion to Lu Hanchen. Lu Hanchen is so old that he has never cooked before, so naturally he doesn't know how to peel onions. He took the onion and asked, how do you peel it? Just peel it off by hand, peel it off. Bao's eyes flashed with a hint of cunning. Bao glanced at him and hesitated to speak. This uncle looks a bit silly, it seems that he hasn't done any household chores before. My younger brother is willing to play tricks on him. Lu Hanchen would not have thought that such a young child has so many hearts and minds. He peeled it directly according to the way Bao said. And then he only felt something piercing his eyes, so spicy that he couldn't help but shed tears. He closed his eyes and heard Bao's laughter in his ear. Uncle, why are you crying? Why don't you just peel an onion? Do you want to be so aggrieved? Lu Hanchen. He finally realized that he had been fooled by this stinky kid. Bao, you're so bad. Mom, come on, the handsome corn is so spicy with onions that it's crying. Gu Xiao ran to the kitchen to move reinforcements. Just as Gu Nian was preparing to stir fry, he heard his daughter's words and quickly ran into the backyard. What happened? Let me see now. Lu Han closed his eyes and tears streamed down his face. He swore that this was the first time in his life that he had shed so many tears. Mommy, I'm sorry, I asked my uncle to peel onions. I didn't expect him to be so stupid. Bao is also honest, admitting his mistake directly and not forgetting to belittle Lu Hanchen. Gu Nian gave him a funny look and said, some people are really stupid. Apart from being able to eat for free and play tricks on others, they are useless. They should. Lu Hanchen. Isn't he just teasing her this morning? How could you become a foolish, freeloader, and useless person? What a vengeful woman. After considering the situation, I decided to push the landing of Han Chen to the sink and help him wash his eyes. A cool little hand touched his eyes, neutralizing the spiciness in them. Lu Hanchen's senses became stronger because he couldn't see. He could smell the pleasant aroma of women emanating from her, accompanied by the fragrance of rice wafting in the space, filled with the smell of fireworks, making people feel at ease. Is it better now? Gu Nian asked after cleaning him almost thoroughly. Lu Hanchen opened his eyes and looked at Xingmo, who was concerned about her beauty, and let out a sigh. Gu Nian pushed him out and said, all right, fourth young master, just stay obediently and make a living. Don't make any more trouble. Look at him like this, where is a person doing miscellaneous things? Lu Han raised his sword eyebrows. Fourth young master. This is a mockery that he only knows how to eat and doesn't know how to work. Why doesn't she just wait to die? Shui shu shu, let's go draw. Gu Xiaoxiao left the others behind and ran to play with Lu Hanchen. Lu Hanchen had no objection and accompanied Gu Xiaoxiao to draw. After Gu Nian prepares lunch, a few people will come to the table to eat. Ah, see, you can eat today. Gu Nian served him rice and soup. Lu Han smelled the aroma of the food and his Adam's apple rolled. Although they are all home-cooked dishes, they smell really fragrant. I don't eat celery, I don't eat carrots, and don't put mushrooms in the soup afterwards. Gu Nian. Is this man so picky about food? The most important thing is that my picky eating habits are just like my 3 little kids. Mommy, you see, even handsome Millet doesn't like to eat those things. Gu Xiao seems to have found the alliance, with bright eyes. Gu Nian looked at Lu Hanzhen and picked these 2 dishes into his bowl. Ah, see, why don't you like these 2 dishes? I wonder if they are the most nutritious among vegetables. Lu Han stared at the dishes on the bowl with a furrowed brow. There are many nutritious vegetables, and I'm not a rabbit. Why do I have to eat carrots? And this celery has a medicinal taste, don't you think it tastes bad? He spoke with righteousness, and his concerns were simply speechless. 3 little ones silently nodded and secretly picked out the carrots and celery from the bowl. Gu Nian saw it and was both angry and amused. I see who dares to throw away these dishes. From now on, I will cook these 2 dishes every day. 3 little ones. They thought that with an additional alliance, they could fight against each other 4 times and no longer have to eat these unpleasant dishes. Dr. Gu, our taste buds are not only used to fill our stomachs, but also for tasting. If they don't like to eat, don't force them to eat. Lu Hanchen said somewhat displeased. Thinking of him, he raised his eyebrows and said, Ah, see, I am the master of this family, and they have to listen to me. If you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. I will cook porridge and pickles for you. Lu Hanchen. And then make him allergic again. What a heartless woman. Put it down, I didn't say I wouldn't eat. Seeing Gu Nian's intention to take away his bowl, Lu Hanchen said with a black face. With a smile on his lips, he deliberately scooped a spoonful of mushroom into his soup bowl. Drink some soup to moisten your throat first. Remember, you should eat all of them and not leave them. Otherwise, you will be served with porridge tomorrow. Lu Hanchen. Why did he suffer from the merciless torment of this woman? Is it still possible for him to declare his identity and have a 5-star chef come here to cook for him? Lu Han's face was as black as ink, and the fleeting thoughts only flashed by. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and finish this meal. After lunch, Gu Nian finished tidying up the kitchen and asked San Xiaojiu to take a nap upstairs. Lu Hanzhen rested for a whole morning without feeling sleepy, so he asked Gu Nian to find some books for him to read. Gu Nian brought him several medical books. Lu Han frowned and said, Is there no other book to read? He is not studying medicine, he wants to read books on finance. Yes, do you want to read children's books? Gu Nian asked. Lu Han stared at the playful smile on her lips and gritted his teeth. I always feel that she was intentional. Just because he teased her this morning. After taking care of the weak, sick, and disabled at home, he took a recliner and sat in the backyard, blowing the wind from the hallway and closing his eyes to rest. The room is very quiet, and needles can be smelled. I have dreamt about it, and then I dream back to that night 4 years ago. In the darkness, the man's heavy breathing echoed in her ear, accompanied by his strong possession. Who the hell is he? I desperately want to see the other person's appearance. The man stopped, his black eyes fixed on her, particularly deep. Gu Nian lifted his face, and what caught the eye was. Chapter 8. The Woman 4 Years Ago. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Lu Hanzhen read a book in the room for a while, feeling a bit thirsty. The water in the cup ran out. He held the cup and moved his wheelchair to the backyard to pour water. He saw Gu Nian lying on the lounge chair in the cool breeze for a nap. She seemed to be sleeping restlessly, unsure of what she had dreamed of, her eyelashes trembling lightly. The wind in the hallway was quite strong, and Lu Han's thin lips lightly pursed before returning to the room to get a blanket. Although this woman is quite aggressive, he still relies on her to treat himself. She can't get sick. Lu Hanchen came to the recliner and gently covered the blanket for Gu Nian. In my sleep, I struggled to see the man clearly that night. My gaze suddenly became clear, and the man's handsome face was so familiar. It's him. Gu Nian suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Gu Nian, who was close to Lu Hanchen. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether it was a dream or reality. Are you awake? Lu Hanchen saw Gu Nian suddenly open his eyes and looked at him with a dull expression, raising an eyebrow. The chaotic thoughts gradually cleared up. What is she thinking? How could the man from 4 years ago be this man? But she actually dreamed of him. Probably because he looks good. Thinking of the scene in my dream, my little face warmed slightly. She shamelessly regarded this man as the object of imagination. Why are you staring at me all the time without taking a break? Gu Nian saw Lu Han's dark eyes staring straight at him, feeling uncomfortable all over. Lu Han narrowed his dark eyes and said, Dr. Gu, your face is so red. Did you have some inappropriate dreams for children? Gu Nian. Why is this man with amnesia so annoying? Why make people feel embarrassed? See, if you are free, I don't mind letting you peel some onions for me. Lu Hanchen. Is this becoming angry from embarrassment? So, why are you blushing? Did I guess correctly? Gu Nian. She has never seen such a detestable man before. At this moment, San Shao only came down from the second floor. Mommy. 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 The sound of milk echoed, and the little ones who had just woken up still had a slightly hazy expression on their faces. Feeling soft-hearted, he walked over to hug the 3 of them and gave each one a meme. Have you all woken up from sleep? The 3 little ones all responded in unison. Gu Xiaoxiao saw that Lu Hanchen was also there, and ran to his side with a smile. Shui Shu Shu, did you take a nap? Lu Han frowned and said, I slept too much in the morning, so I didn't sleep. I read a book for a while. What book are you reading, Shui Shu Shu? I'm reading the medical book your mom gave me. Can you understand my mom's medical book, Shui Shu Shu? I can't understand. If you don't understand, you can ask my mom. Listening to the 2 of them chattering about their lack of nutrition, they glanced at Lu Han with concern. My daughter is usually a talkative person, and sometimes she finds her annoying. This man is quite patient. I didn't bother them anymore, so I took the herbs that needed to be sun-dried to the front yard. Mommy, let's help you. The 2 brothers went to help Gu Nian. Okay. Looking at the busy little bodies of the 2 brothers with gentle eyebrows and eyes, I had already become accustomed to them. Lu Hanchen accompanied Gu Xiaoxiao to chat while watching this scene, feeling fresh and warm. It can be seen that this woman has a good upbringing. Teach these 3 little ones to be obedient and sensible. An afternoon passed quickly. After dinner, I was concerned about feeding medicine to Lu Hanchen. Lu Han awkwardly twisted his eyebrows and took a big sip, but almost vomited. Why is this medicine so bitter today? Suffering so much that it feels like knocking over a Huanglian jar, making him doubt life. See, the good medicine tastes bitter. Gu Nian calmly spoke out. Lu Han's dark eyes settled and he said, Dr. Gu, are you retaliating against me? Just because he teased her once in the morning, she began a series of retaliatory actions. Do you have it? I'm just testing your endurance. Gu Nian raised her eyebrows and retorted. Lu Hanchen felt that these words were inexplicably familiar. During the day, after he played with her, when she questioned him, he retorted like this. Saying it's not revenge. She is a woman who always seeks revenge. Give me a plum blossom. Sorry, we've finished the plums. Then give me a candy. Eating sugar at night can lead to tooth decay. Don't you understand this truth for such a big person? Sure enough, there are only petty people and women in the world who are difficult to raise. Lu Hanchen muttered inwardly. Looking at his dark eyes, Gu Nian smiled. Are you cursing me in your heart? You don't have to hold it back, you can definitely curse. So I can test your endurance again tomorrow. Lu Hanchen. Don't offend anyone, don't offend women. The night was quiet, and after serving the 3 little ones, I went to the first floor to serve Lu Hanchen. Come on, see, it's your turn. She is really a bodhisattva, none of the 3 little ones have ever made her worry so much. Bathing before acupuncture and moxibustion. Lu Hanchen struggled to sit in the wheelchair with Gu Nian and asked. He had been lying in bed before, and she just helped him wipe his body. He felt like he was going to mold. Didn't you smell a foul odor on yourself? Neglecting to push someone into the restroom on the first floor, he deliberately squeezed a sentence. Lu Han pursed his thin lips lightly and said, Dr. Gu, as a disabled person, if my body smells, it should be the responsibility of the caregiver. Gu Nian squatted down to take off his clothes, looked at his strong chest muscles, and chuckled. Did I save you or was it my fault? Lu Han's hen remained silent, with a look of your own. Gu Nian threw a big white eye at him, quickly removed his pants, and then helped him into the bathtub filled with water. The warm water enveloped his body, and Lu Han's hen let out a comfortable sigh. Call me when it's washed. Kering said, and then went out of the bathroom to prepare acupuncture and moxibustion supplies. Lu Han looked at the small bathroom, which was less than 10 square meters, and felt it was extremely rudimentary. Fortunately, the bathroom was cleaned very clean and the air was fragrant. He closed his eyes and rubbed his legs in the water. When will his legs be able to feel? Thinking about getting ready for acupuncture and moxibustion supplies outside, I looked at the time and then went to knock on the door of the bathroom. See, are you okay? Lu Hanchen is trying to get out of the bathtub on his own. Upon hearing her cry, he relaxed his grip on the bathtub and fell into it. With a loud splash, water splashed everywhere. Upon hearing the commotion, he quickly pushed the door in. Looking at the splashing water on the ground, she frowned and said, All right, why don't you call me? Lu Han's chest slightly undulated, and his face was not good looking. He just wants to see if he can stand up. See, everything should be done step by step, please don't try to be too strong. Gu Nian drained the water from the bathtub and wiped his body with a dry towel. If you don't believe me and refuse to follow my way, then I will send you to the police station tomorrow, and you can hire someone else. Her expression was cold, exuding an indescribable deterrent power. Lu Hanchen actually saw his aura on her. It's hard to underestimate her aura. Sorry, it won't happen again in the future. Lu Hanchen grabbed her shoulder and said something. Without saying a word, he struggled to help him onto the wheelchair. At this moment, the incandescent light above suddenly flashed, and then darkness fell all around. The sudden darkness made Gu Nian take a breath, his legs softened, and he fell into Lu Hanchen's arms. Touching a scorching patch of skin on his hand, the man's gaze was particularly deep and dark in the night. Stop, there's a power outage, Gu Nian said subconsciously. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Lu Han's voice was hoarse, and his hands wrapped around her delicate waist. Her heart skipped a beat as she quickly stood up from his embrace and trimmed her hair in her ear. I'll go see what's going on. Lu Hanchen's gaze shifted accordingly, and the delicate fragrance of a woman still lingered in his nose. His Adam's apple rolled and his black eyes darkened. Has it been too long since he touched a woman, so much so that he can't hold on to her even if he has some contact with her? Gu Nian walked out of the restroom, patted her face with hot hair, took a deep breath, turned on the lighting on her phone, and looked for the power switch. Turns out it tripped. Gu Nian pulled up the gate, and the first floor instantly lit up. She stabilized her emotions and entered the room on the first floor. Lu Hanchen had already put on his pajamas, but his pants could only be hung loosely on his legs. Gu Nian worked hard to keep his mind focused, pulled up his pants, and then helped him to bed. How could there be a power outage? Lu Hanchen asked. It's okay, it tripped. Because it is an old house and the power lines are aging, the gate will occasionally jump. Gu Nian didn't speak anymore and started treating Lu Hanchen. Lu Hanchen didn't say a word, just looked at the beautiful face he was looking at, and the night 4 years ago always flashed in his mind. If it weren't for him knowing who the woman he had slept with was, he would have doubted that Gu Nian was the woman from 4 years ago. The next day. Babies, stay at home obediently while I go out. Gu Nian changed into clothes and prepared to go to Gu's house. Mommy, where are you going? Are you going to see Grandma? Gu Xiao asked in a small, milky voice. Yes, it is. Gu Nian replied softly. Why doesn't Mommy take us to see Grandma Pinch? Mommy still has some things to attend to today. Can we take you to see Granny again next time? Gu Nian touched his daughter's soft hair and then instructed the brothers to take good care of their younger sister. Are you going back to your mother's house? Lu Hanchen sat in a wheelchair and looked at her. Pay attention to safety. His voice was deep and calm, even though he was sitting in a wheelchair. Glancing at him with concern, there was a soft glint in his eyebrows and eyes. I don't know why, but this person is clearly a mysterious person of unknown origin, which makes her feel inexplicably at ease. Chapter 9. Who is the father of the child? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Nian drove to a villa area and looked at the familiar courtyard of one of the villas. Memories of the past flashed in his mind. Once, she also had a very happy home. She has loving parents, grandparents, and grandparents. Everyone doted on her as a little princess. However, at the age of 6, everything changed. One day, her mother suddenly drove under the influence of alcohol and killed someone, and was sentenced to imprisonment. He passed away in prison 2 years later. My father remarried and brought back a daughter who was only 1 year younger than her. It turned out that her father had already betrayed his mother. Her stepmother was kind in the past and hypocritical in the future, gradually making her an unnecessary member of this family. Gu Nian closed her eyes, suppressed her busy thoughts, and rang the doorbell. Someone came over to open the door and looked up and down at her. Who are you looking for? Kuan uncle, it's me. Gu Nian recognized Su Kuan, the butler of the Gu family, and greeted him. Are you the young lady? Su Kuan looked surprised. Gu Nian smiled and said, Is Grandma at home? Yes, I heard you're coming back, and your father specifically brought the old lady back from the nursing home. Su Kuan answered while opening the door for Gu Nian. Gu Nian's lips curved into a cold smile. My grandfather passed away a few years ago, and my father only had one mother left. However, with the encouragement of the person next to him, he was able to send my grandmother to a nursing home early. What a filial son. As she entered the door, her gaze swept around and landed on the elderly man with graying hair. Her nose soured and she opened her arms. Grandma, I'm back. Nian Nian, my good granddaughter, you have finally returned. Mrs. Gu had tears in her eyes and excitedly hugged her. You child, why haven't you been in contact with your family for so long? I miss Grandma so much. Grandma, I miss you too. Gu Nian took a sniff, stood up straight, and smiled to wipe away Mrs. Gu's tears. After my mother was imprisoned, only my grandmother was genuinely good to me. Let Grandma take a look quickly. Oh, why has my family's Nian Nian become so beautiful? Because I look like a grandmother. This child's mouth is still so sweet. Mrs. Gu was coaxed into a state of ecstasy. The two chatted as if there was no one around, ignoring the others present. Gu Xintong looked at Lu Qinfei with a look of anger on her face, and then pushed her mother Ma Xiuli who was sitting next to her. Ma Xiuli gave her a slightly calm gaze. Then he looked at Gu Nian and smiled hypocritically. Nian Nian, it's good for you to come back. I heard you had 3 children, why didn't you bring them back today? Your room has been cleaned by an aunt, so I'm waiting for you to come back and stay. When will you bring your husband and children back to stay for 2 days? Gu Nian helped Mrs. Gu sit on the sofa and looked up at Ma Xiuli. Aunt Ma, this is my home. I can come and go whenever I want. Don't put on the airs of being the hostess. After all, this house is the common property of my dad and mom. Speaking of which, you are the outsider. Ma Xiuli choked and immediately reluctantly looked at her husband Gu Zhengrong. Gu Zhengrong's face darkened and he scolded, Gu Nian, have you developed skills? After walking for 4 years without paying attention to your family, how dare you still speak to your Aunt Ma like this? With an indifferent expression, Dad, to be honest, may I ask which sentence I said wrong? You. Gu Zhengrong threw the teacup over and said, Gu Nian, you haven't been cared for by anyone for 4 years, have your wings grown hard? Gu Nian quickly dodged and managed to dodge. My heart felt a chill. Her father, knowing that she had been ambushed by Gu Xintong 4 years ago, seemed to have nothing to do with it and instead accused her everywhere. Is this really her biological father? Nian Nian, are you okay? Mrs. Gu quickly stood up with a concerned expression on her face. I'm fine, Gu Nian shook his head. Mrs. Gu looked at Gu Zhengrong and said, Zhengrong, what have you been taking care of her since she was 6 years old? She has been outside for 4 years, but who caused it? Have you, as a father, supported her? Upon hearing these words, Gu Zhengrong impatiently said, Mom, you're getting older, just take care of yourself. You. Grandma. Gu Nian patted Mrs. Gu's hand, gesturing for her not to say anything. Her father is no longer the one in her memory, the loving father who will lift her up high. I won't listen to anything I say. Gu Nian, since you're back, hurry up and handle the divorce procedures. Everyone is a family, we should look forward and don't keep worrying about the wrong things, and keep making your sister criticized. Gu Zhengrong talked about the main matter. So in his eyes, she was ambushed by Gu Xintong and her husband was taken away, but Gu Xintong made a small mistake. And it's also because she's not sensible and insists on holding on to it. Gu Nian is too lazy to talk nonsense to him anymore. Sure, Gu Xintong, as long as you tell me who the man that night was, I will divorce Lu Qinfei. She will certainly divorce Lu Qinfei. But before that, she needs to know who the father of the child is. Because her 3 children are at school age, and the best private kindergarten she found in Yinqing actually has a strange regulation. They don't accept children from families with disabilities. So she must know who the child's father is. Gu Xintong's eyes flickered. Gu Nian, is what you said true? As long as I tell you, who was the man that night, will you divorce Ah Chen? Yes. I think about it. Gu Xintong's eyes rolled and he said, I remember, he should be Huang Minghai from Huang Pharmaceutical. She really can't remember who the man was back then. But she did remember Huang Minghai at the scene. Just fool Gu Nian for a moment. Are you sure? Gu Nian asked. I'm sure. Gu Xintong took out her phone and said, if you don't believe me, I'll contact him. Let's meet and have a chat. No need. Gu Nian said, I will talk to him myself. Gu Xintong's eyes flickered and he said, Gu Nian, I have already told you who the father of the child is. Can you go with Aiken to handle the divorce procedures? What's the rush? Wait until I meet Huang Minghai first. Gu Nian is not in a hurry, but Gu Xintong is in a hurry. Gu Nian, are you trying to cheat? Gu Nian glanced at her and said, I'm not you, I'm not that despicable. Of course, if you're in a hurry to divorce me, you can also kneel down and beg me. You. Gu Xintong was extremely angry and acted coquettishly with Gu Zhengrong. Dad, look at her. Gu Zhengrong quickly comforted him and scolded Gu Nian, "What do you see? Gu Nian, you should go and handle the divorce procedures with Chen immediately." Looking at him with concern, his gaze was cold and eerie. "Dad, I can handle my own affairs on my own. You'd better worry about your own affairs." Gu Zhengrong frowned and said, "What do I need?" "Dad, were you really the one who got drunk driving and crashed with Mom back then?" One sentence made Gu Zhengrong's face change. "Gu Nian, what do you mean?" "Dad, the world is vast and open, and I will eventually uncover the truth of the past." Gu Nian's fingers curled up, and her gaze swept towards Ma Xiuli. "Also, my mother passed away in prison in less than 2 years. The doctor said she died from heart failure, but she is still so young. Even if her heart is not very good and she needs to take long-term medication, it is impossible for her to die from heart failure. Someone doesn't want her to come out." Chapter 10. This is called Irregular Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The room suddenly quieted down. Looking at the two people with a guilty expression on their faces, Gu Nian suppressed the emotions in his eyes. "All right, I'm leaving. Dad, I hold 20% of the shares in our company. I'll send you an account later. Could you please give me the dividends that have been due to me for so many years, no less than a penny? Don't let me come to the company to urge you, it will make everyone look bad." The company's shares were a benefit that her mother exchanged for her imprisonment. For so many years, her father has been holding on to the money that should have belonged to her and refusing to give it to her. It's time for her to reclaim it from him. After Gu Nian finished speaking, he no longer looked at the few people present and said to Gu Laofu humanely, "Grandma, you come with me, and I will take care of you from now on." Upon hearing these words, Mrs. Gu's eyes immediately flashed with tears. "Good child, you don't need to take care of me. I'm doing quite well in the sanatorium." "Grandma, I really don't need it," Mrs. Gu insists. Gu Nian thought that besides the 3 children, there was also a mysterious person at home, but he didn't persist anymore. "I'll take you back to the sanatorium now. After she finishes dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, she will take her grandmother to spend the rest of her life." "Okay." Mrs. Gu readily agreed. "Gu Nian, how did you come? I'll see you off." Lu Chenfei, who remained silent throughout the journey, saw Gu Nian about to leave and quickly stood up. Gu Nian paused in his footsteps, glanced at Gu Xintong, and the corners of his mouth curved with mockery. "Are you sure you want to send me off?" "Aiken, what do you want to send?" Gu Xintong, angry, walked over and grabbed his arm. "Hiss, please be gentle and twist my flesh." Lu Chenfei frowned and broke free from her hand. "Aiken, what's your attitude? As soon as she comes back, I see your eyeballs almost sticking to her." Gu Xintong said. "Where do I have it? Can you stop making trouble for no reason? Am I causing trouble for no reason? What a plastic couple." Gu Nian chuckled lightly and helped Mrs. Gu leave. "Xintong, don't argue with Aiken." Ma Xiuli quickly went to persuade. "Am I going to argue? Mom, I think he has to get divorced." Gu Xintong shouted loudly. Lu Chenfei tidied up his sleeves, but his face didn't look very good. "Dad, Mom, there's something going on in our company. Let's leave first. He just doesn't want a divorce. Just now, I missed so much. I feel more and more that I shouldn't have been obsessed at the beginning. How could I have been seduced by Gu Xintong? Lu Chenfei, please stop me." Gu Xintong was about to catch up and was grabbed by Ma Xiuli. "All right, Xintong, please save face for your husband in front of outsiders and don't make any more fuss." Gu Xintong stomped his feet in anger. "Mom, you've seen it too. Considering her refusal to divorce, what should I do?" Ma Xiuli's face darkened and she said, "No, she won't. Didn't she say that as long as she finds the person from back then, she will divorce Chen?" But I'm not sure if the person that night was Huang Minghai. Gu Xintong sat down on the sofa, angry and anxious. Ma Xiuli sat down beside her, her eyes flashing with malice. Don't worry, even if it's not, it can become, yes. This concern, not seen in 4 years, has really changed a lot. She still needs to overturn the case for her mother. She won't let her wish come true. Rebel girl, how dare she threaten me? She's really going against the sky. Gu Zhengrong, standing beside him, suddenly slapped the sofa and angrily said. Su Kuan walked over and poured him a glass of water. Master, please calm down. The young lady is still young and cannot become the weather. Gu Zhengrong took the teacup and touched his gaze, his heart slightly calmed. It's been so long since things happened back then, and with just a little girl, could she still come up with flowers? Outside, Gu Nian drove Mrs. Gu to a nursing home. Nian Nian, what did you mean in front of your father just now? Is there any hidden information about your mother's imprisonment? Mrs. Gu asked. Gu Nian remained silent and did not conceal anything. Grandma, my mom used to take responsibility for my dad and go to jail. What? Mrs. Gu was greatly shocked. Gu Nian said, before I went abroad, an aunt who claimed to be my mother's cellmate found me. She told me that my mother had been crying the night before her death, saying she was outrageously wrong and shouldn't take responsibility for my father. The reason why she did this at that time was because she was a full-time housewife. If her father went to jail, the family would be ruined. She only went to jail to replace my father in order for me to live a comfortable life. The mother made her father promise to treat her daughter well, but it's hard to predict. What she didn't know was that her father had already betrayed her. And children without a mother by their side are looked down upon like grass. What a sin. Mrs. Gu felt heartbroken and said, so your mother's death, isn't it natural? Gu Nian clenched his hand on the steering wheel. Mom's death should be related to Ma Xiuli, but I have no evidence. Mrs. Gu sighed and looked regretful. It's all my fault for bringing wolves into the house. If it weren't for me looking at Ma Xiuli, a little girl who couldn't easily work in the city from the mountains and valleys, I would have let her work as a nanny at home. Perhaps there wouldn't have been anything else going on. I didn't expect her to climb onto your father's bed. No wonder she left after working for a year. It turns out she was being spoiled by your father's golden house. Gu Nian shook the old lady's hand and silently comforted her. It's not my grandmother's fault. It's just that some people have a dark and greedy nature. Suburban courtyard. Shui shu shu, my hair is messy and messy. Can you help me tie it up? Gu Xiaoxiao walked to the bedside with a messy head of soft hair, her hands spread out, and 2 black hair rings were placed on top. Lu Hanshan looked at the black hair circle and then at the small milk bun, feeling a bit lost. Let him braid the little girl's hair. He has never done such a delicate job before. Shui shu shu, why aren't you moving? Gu Xiao asked in a small, milky voice. Shu shu is thinking about what kind of braid to tie for you. Lu Hanshan took the hair ring from her hand and gritted her scalp. Just like mommy, just help me tie 2 ponytails. Gu Xiao played with her little finger and said with a smile. Lu Hanshen recalled the appearance of 2 ponytails and began to take action. Oh, Shui shu shu, please be gentle and let me know if it hurts. Gu Xiaoxiao's scalp was scratched, her small hand scratched, and she spoke coquettishly. Sorry. Lu Han's Adam's apple rolled down his throat, feeling that tying a small braid was even more difficult than talking about billions of dollars in business. It hurts. Gu Xiaoxiao frowned again. Lu Han clumsily tied a braid and quickly coaxed, almost done, Xiaoxiao is the best. Don't cry out for pain. Gu Xiaoxiao was obedient, even if she was hurt again, she only frowned and didn't shout pain. Finally, the 2 braids were tied up. Lu Hanshan looked at the ponytails on the little guy's head, one high and one low, feeling a bit miserable. It's too difficult to tie a small braid. Is that okay? Let me take a look. Gu Xiaoxiao found a small mirror and looked at it beautifully. Shoo shoo, why are you different from mommy's braids? It's a bit ugly. Xiao Xiao, you don't understand, this is called irregular beauty, Lu Han coughed lightly, really. The little one has bright eyes. Really, you're so cute, you look good no matter how you tie it. Lu Hanchen spoke seriously. The little one chuckled and said, Shui shoo shoo, I'll go play with my brother. Lu Hanchen looked at the back of the little guy walking outside, feeling inexplicably guilty. The two little ones outside are not so easy to fool. Sure enough, the cries of the two brothers rang out outside. Sister, what's wrong with your hair? Did you get bitten by a dog? Disgusting, handsome shoo 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 said I'm cute, no matter how I tie it, it looks good. He's just a big scammer. No, it's not. The children's laughter echoed everywhere, and Lu Han's hen leaned against the bed, with a smile flashing in his eyes and eyebrows. At this moment, San Xiao suddenly shouted loudly.